The opening for Gachiakuta is surprisingly deep. I thought it was random at first, but the more I watched it, the more layers I was able to find. It may not be as flashy as the Dawn openings, but this opening is incredibly artistic and perfectly represents the core message of this show, giving meaning to the things we decide are special. That being said, this opening is far from perfect, so I'd also like to point out why this opening definitely could have been better. But let's start with what everyone likes about this opening. The song. This song is very different from most openings. Most openings have some kind of pop song that's family friendly and everyone can dance to. But Kei Urana decided, nah, give me the grungiest, heaviest metal song you can give me. And that's exactly what the band Pale Dusk did. This song isn't for everyone. Some people have even said it's just a lot of screaming. But most of the Gachiakuta fans I've seen are saying they love this song. And so do I. I love bands like Pantera and Testament, so anything heavy metal is right up my alley. Plus, the tone of this song is perfect for the story. Gachiakuta is literally and figuratively underground. Everyone is buried in trash, but it's also a story about being a reject and taking back the trash that's thrown out by everyone else. Unfortunately, as of Sunday, there's still no lyrics out for this song, so I can't really dive much deeper into it. On the bright side, the band has already made some comments. Basically, they said the song is supposed to be about love and being resilient against adversity. The resilience thing makes sense because, you know, living in trash is kind of a struggle, but the love thing stood out to me right away. Love isn't in your face in Gachiakuta. It's not a romantic story, and there's really no romantic interests. But then I realized that love is what ties this song and the visuals of the opening together, and suddenly it clicked. Because if I'm being totally honest, I did not like the visuals at all the first time I watched this opening. Considering it's Kei Urana and considering it's Studio Bones, I was expecting some insane action scenes and people using crazy abilities. And crazy is definitely a word to describe this opening. I will admit that this keeps in theme with the series as a whole and a lot of the promos for the anime by combining the graffiti art with a lot of random cutouts and faces. That being said, a lot of people don't like this opening because nothing happens. People meme on the My Hero openings, but at least there All Might will charge up or Deku will do some flips or something. And then you have the Mob Psycho openings, which are full of trippy visuals. This opening is trippy, but in a different way. This opening is very artistic, but so much so that it kind of forgets what people want to see in the first place. We get to see the characters for like 2 seconds, but we don't see anything else. Usually in an opening, you see characters using attacks or transforming. Something that makes you go, I don't know who that person is, but I want to find out more. Here, the characters barely do anything, so you don't get any idea of who they are. The whole opening is just a bunch of trash exploding. That's it. Which means this opening is trash, literally and figuratively. But, you know, as much as some people think Bones dropped the ball on this one, I think people are rushing to decide they don't like it. Sure, the visuals are underwhelming, but that's because Bones opts for symbolism over flashiness. And it goes back to what Pale Dusk said about love. See, the first time I watched this opening, not only did I think it was boring, but I just didn't know what I was watching. Like literally all I saw was trash exploding. But knowing that Studio Bones is full of a bunch of artists, and knowing that Kei Urana wanted a very specific tone for this opening, I gave it another chance. What stood out to me was this rose in the beginning. I'm caught up on the manga, and roses still aren't really a part of the story in a big way. So I was like, okay, so there's no story significance for this rose, so maybe they're trying to say something. But at first I didn't see how this tied into whatever was going on in the opening. But knowing that there's a language of flowers, I turned to my friend Google and found out that obviously roses, specifically red roses, are a symbol of love and passion. And like we said, Pale Dusk made love a big part of this opening. And there's a couple of reasons why this ties into the theme themes of Gachiakuta. First of all, Bones was very deliberate about the choice of color in this opening. There's a bunch of colors that are used, but for the most part, it's a lot of contrast between grays and red. Red is the color of the rose we see, and it's the color of Rudo's eyes. Now, if you know Gachiakuta, then you know Rudo is a very passionate character. He's incredibly intense, feeling strongly towards everyone and everything. So the red theme in this opening is a nice way to highlight that aspect of Rudo's character. It also ties Rudo to the rose through the theme of passion and love. At first, the rose seems kind of random, but then it makes sense when you get to the end of the opening. Throughout the whole opening, everyone and everything is exploding and turning to dust. But what's interesting is what exactly is being destroyed. There's a lot of trash being destroyed, but there's also a lot of statues and fine art being destroyed as well, which at first might seem random because it's like, what does fine art have to do with Gachiakuta? But remember, there's two worlds in this story. The surface world where we start out, and the trash world where Rudo ends up. So this contrast between literal trash and valuables is clearly deliberate, and the fact that they all get destroyed seems to imply a certain message. Something along the lines of, it doesn't matter if it's a tin can or a $1,000 painting, everything eventually rots away. Which is what we see throughout the whole opening, especially when the main characters turn to dust. The fact that the characters are destroyed as well perfectly ties into this theme of trash and valuables, but we'll get to that in a minute. What we should point out is that after everything is destroyed, it all comes back. Literally everything that happened before is undone. In other words, just because something is trashed doesn't mean it dies. You can always give it new life, which obviously is exactly what the power system in Gachiakuta is all about. The givers get their powers by making emotional attachments to all kinds of different objects they find lying in the trash. Objects that were discarded and destroyed are now given new life, just like we see in the opening. And the fact that this also happens to the main characters says something about humans as well, namely that we have as little or as much value as we decide. Society likes to decide who the important people are and who the outcasts are. It's exactly what we see in the first episode. The rich people all live in paradise and are surrounded by expensive things as they cast out the tribesfolk like Rudo. But while they're quick to throw things out that are broken, Rudo feels bad for things that are thrown away, which is what we like about Rudo as a character. In the same way he picks up the trash that people throw away, he also tries to understand the people who were thrown away by society, so to speak. The underdogs, the people who have been to hell and back. And this is also why his powers are so different. Rudo can give powers to any item that he finds meaningful by giving it a new purpose, an ability that he eventually comes to name reduce, reuse, recycle. And recycling is exactly how this opening ties into Gachiakuta, because the opening destroys everyone regardless of their apparent value. They all turn to trash, but then they all come back in the end, and it ties into the rose, this theme of love. Rudo is able to give purpose to trash because he loves these items. He gives them the love that they never saw before they were thrown away. So with this love, we can undo the trashing of things and people and bring them back. We can reuse and recycle. For these reasons, I think the Gachiakuta opening is perfect for what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a very artistic take on what Gachiakuta is about and why it's so different. It does this right away with the song given to us by Pale Dusk. It's incredibly heavy and full of screaming, but that's the kind of underground tone that defines Gachiakuta. It's loud, it's bold, and it's very weird. Granted, as much as they are artistic, the visuals leave a lot to be desired. Dawn has shown us that you can be artistic while still being flashy and fun, something that Bones themselves has done several times for their other shows. So it makes sense why people don't like this opening at first. But while it's not flashy and it doesn't have memes, this opening couldn't be a better representation of what Gachiakuta is all about. It shows us how nothing is ever really trash, and we decide what's important to us. Plus, I don't know about you guys, but I can guarantee I'll be playing this song on repeat for at least the next month. And that is why the Gachiakuta opening is much better than you probably think it is. but maybe I'm wrong. How would you rate the opening? How does it compare to other openings? Share your thoughts and see what everyone else has to say down in the comments. I'll pick my favorite and share it as comment of the week on my community tab. Also, make sure to become a channel member. You get badges and emojis, you can pick which series I cover next, and you can even get credited in future videos. Also, check out my other Gachiakuta videos, which you can find in this playlist right here. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.